So I thought this week I would do a slightly different vlog to the usual and talk a little bit about my work. For anybody who doesn't know, I'm a freelance photographer in London, and I've been working as a freelance photographer since about 2010. Mostly I've been working for the Evening Standard. I'm a freelance for them. I'm not employed by them. Pre-pandemic I was doing a lot more work for them, and post-pandemic I've really been playing catch up for the last 2 years. But anyway, I just thought I would have a look through the work I've done this year, or some of the work I've done this year, particularly focused on the portraits that I've done. And I've picked sort of my 10 favourite portraits from the year, and I thought I'd just have a little whip through them and tell you a little bit about them. I'm going to keep it super brief because I can waffle on, as you very well know. So the first one is a portrait of the ceramicist Emma Lacey, who lives in North London, and she's pretty well known in London for these mugs that she makes with little dimples in. And if you go in pretty much any independent coffee shop in London, you will see these mugs because they're everywhere, and she's really famous for that. And I photographed her for Homes and Properties at the Evening Standard for a job which I do, which is called an area guide to, and they pick somebody, usually somebody creative or somebody of note, and I photograph them in the area where they live, and I photograph some of the places that they use, like shops and restaurants and bars and cafes. And I usually just meet the person on the street and we find a couple of locations to shoot, and then I go off and shoot the list of places that they've mentioned. So with Emma, I photographed her around Crouch End, which is where she lives, and we just got on really well. We hit it off straight away, and she actually needed a photographer to do some product shots the following week, and asked me if I would be able to go to her studio and do that. So I went up to see her a week after I'd initially met her and photographed her, and that's when I took this picture. It's very different to the picture that was actually used in the newspaper. But yeah, she's great. She's a lot of fun. She doesn't like being photographed, but yeah, we had a giggle, and she's somebody I really think is a brilliant person. So she was a nice person to meet. The next picture is, again, another area guide that I shot for the Evening Standard. The novelist Rosa Rankin G, and we met in Peckham to do some shots. And again, I don't think this picture that I've chosen actually went to the Evening Standard because I thought it was a bit too dark and moody, but I just really kind of loved the light, and it was a really tricky place to shoot. It was in the basement of a cafe, which is actually used as a gallery, and it was quite a tricky place to light, but I was really happy with this picture. She loved it as well, actually. I was hoping she would buy it, but she didn't. But yeah, it was a very different vibe to the picture that was used in the paper, but quite a cool shot, I thought. I love photographing writers because they absolutely hate having their picture taken, but if you take a good picture of a writer, they're your best friend forever. The next one is a more famous person that I photographed, and that's Tom Daley, and this was for a feature in the Evening Standard. I used to photograph a lot of celebrities, and I really miss doing that, but at the same time it's incredibly stressful because you have a very short amount of time to create something amazing in whatever location you were in. And actually I was kind of lucky in a way because I met Tom at the Aquatics Centre from the 2012 Olympics, which is a brilliant piece of architecture. It was quite a fun place to shoot. There's lots of angles and lines, and you can't really take a bad picture in there. However, I wasn't so keen on photographing him with a swimming pool because it seemed very obvious. So for the picture that was used in the paper, I just concentrated on a little architectural detail of the building. However, I chose a wider shot for this because I do think when I looked at this again, I kind of love it. I kind of love his kind of casual but posed look and the lighting on this as well. And like I say, the architecture is really interesting to me. And obviously it's very relevant because he's a diver. But yeah, he was great. I didn't have very long with him, but we got on quite well. We did a couple of things and got some shots of him outside. And yeah, it was fun. But yeah, a little bit stressful because you're really thinking on your feet and trying to find something in any given location that will make an interesting or impactful picture. I do a lot of work for Homes and Properties at the Evening Standard, as I've said, and often I'm trying to get the cover. In fact, with every shoot I do, it's in my mind that I like to try and get the cover of Homes and Properties, and this was something that I did in the summer that I was particularly pleased with. It was a story about people who rent their gardens out to Londoners who don't have any outside space. I knew this would make the cover as soon as I saw it because it's a really quirky, kind of interesting shot. And I did like this a little bit because it was a bit of a sort of shady day, but I was really happy with this. I knew it would be on the cover. The next shot is another area guide that I did, and it's of the interior designer Georgie Erdai, and he lives in Bloomsbury, and one of the places on his list is one of the only old school fish and chip shops left. It's called the Friar's Delight and it's in Holborn, and I just had to photograph him there because it's just such a cool shop. I'm sure they've done a million photo shoots there, probably better than mine. But I just thought this guy, he was kind of cool. His products are very high-end looks. He sells in Harrods and Selfridges, and he was completely dressed head to foot in Gucci. And I just liked the contrast between him and this really kitschy fish and chip shop. I met Anna Schaefer, who's an actress from a Netflix series called The Witcher, and she was also in the Harry Potter films. She was a love interest for a very young Harry Potter, and we met in North London, and she was brilliant. We just wandered around for a while trying to find interesting places to shoot, and we actually ended up at her husband's wine bar, which is in East London, and we walked down there because she thought it'd be quite an interesting place to shoot. It made the cover of Homes and Properties, which I was really happy with, but I actually prefer the shot that I've chosen because I just thought it was kind of cute and relaxed and just a little bit more unusual. I wish the wall had been a different colour, but you can't have everything. But she was lovely and we got on really well, and she had a real kind of love of being in front of the camera. She was very relaxed and very natural, and very confident, and that always helps when you're photographing somebody. If they're used to being filmed or photographed, it makes life much easier. I go to quite a lot of restaurants for the Evening Standard, and generally I'm photographing the interior of the restaurant, but most often with punters having their dinner, and I also do a few dishes, but occasionally I get to photograph the chefs as well, particularly if they're chefs of note. And this was a restaurant in Knightsbridge called Isibani, and the chef Victor Okonowo was a MasterChef professional finalist, and he was a good looking guy, which always helps when you're photographing somebody. And yeah, we did like a couple of shots. I didn't have very long with him, but I chose this shot, and this was the one that was used in the Evening Standard. It's quite rare for the Evening Standard to use a picture of a chef. They normally want a picture of the restaurant, but for this they were very keen to get a picture of Victor. And yeah, I think he's got a bit of attitude, which I really like, and I thought this was kind of a cool shot. I did a story for Homes and Properties of a couple of guys who live in East London, and the job was to photograph the whole house as well as portraits of them. The picture I've chosen, I think, would have made a great cover for Homes and Properties. I'm not sure why I didn't make the grade that week, but I love this picture. I thought it was kind of like a sort of David Hockney painting in photo form. Another area guide that I shot was for another famous person, and It was Sadie Frost. She is probably the most famous resident of Primrose Hill, and we did a few things around her house, particularly in the garden. We thought this would work well because of the sign in the background, which she'd actually stolen one night when she was drunk. And the paper used a slightly different shot of her with her dog, but I kind of liked her just kind of reclining in the garden. She's actually wearing there her own yoga clothing designs, which I guess she wanted to get a little feature in. She's somebody who's always hustling for the next publicity opportunity. She was great. I didn't have long with her. She was in a mad rush to catch a train, and it was a 5-minute shoot, but I was quite happy with this picture. Again, I think it would have made a nice cover, but for some reason it didn't make the cover of Homes and Properties that week, but I really liked it. One job I've done fairly recently was another area guide, this time to Kennington, which is just down the road. I'm always really happy when jobs are local and I don't have to travel, or I can walk to. Lee Broom is a high-end lighting and furniture designer who lives in Kennington. And the chair he's sat in the picture I've chosen is one of his own designs. Again, I think this could have been a brilliant cover. The paper used a slightly more relaxed picture of him in his kitchen. But yeah, he was great. We had a good laugh. He was very generous with his time. And I would have loved to have photographed his whole house because he had so many interesting objects. He actually has on his wall a leather biker jacket which was painted by Keith Haring, and it's one of only about 6 leather jackets that Keith painted, and they bought it from a gallery in New York, and it had once been owned by Keith Haring's boyfriend, and the boyfriend had... And Keith had actually painted it for his boyfriend, and I did take a sneaky picture of it, sorry Lee. But it has actually been shown on the internet in something else Lee did. But yeah, it was very cool to see, and it was kind of funny because me and my assistant were both wearing Uniqlo Keith Haring sweatshirts on the day. Slightly different calibre of Keith's work, but there you go. Yeah, that was really interesting. The final image is, it's a little bit of a cheat actually, because I did shoot Harriet from Project 26 at the end of last year, but this image, which made the cover, I'm glad to say, of Homes and Properties in February. Project 26 is a company set up by Harriet and her friend, and they find and import Polish and Eastern European film posters from the 50s to the 80s, and it's a really interesting story. There's a little bit more about it on a vlog I did a few weeks ago. If you want to check that out, I went to a poster sale that Harriet and her business partner were working, and I did a little interview with her and had a little look at some of her work, and we actually bought a print of the Midnight Cowboy film poster, which is on the wall in our dressing room. And yeah, she was lovely. This was in South London. It was her 1970s flat-roofed house, which had been architecturally designed, and there was lots of the posters that she sells on the walls, lots of colour, lots of mid-century interest, as well as an adorable dog. And she was just great to photograph, just a really interesting person to talk to, and she was very generous with her time. Thanks for watching this vlog about my work this year, and if you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, I'd love it if you could subscribe and click the bell, because then you'll be alerted to when I post new videos. I really appreciate all the support you've given me through the last few weeks with this vlog. I get lots of messages on Instagram and through YouTube from people who are enjoying it, and please leave your comments below about my work. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think I'm doing right and what you think I'm doing wrong. and let's start a little conversation about photography.